Hey folks, Gary here. I think if you asked anybody on this planet if they have suffered, everyone would say yes, right? Why? Because hardship comes to every single life. I don't care how great or pampered your life is, you've probably faced hardship of some sort at some point in time in your life. Now, if you ask people, uh, would you do it again? Well, a lot of people might say, no, I hated it. I don't want to ever go through it again. But here's the thing about it: when we go through hardship, when we go through really hard things, that actually shapes us. It it creates who we are. It shapes who we are. If you lived a completely pampered life with no struggles at all, I mean that would shape you too. But there'd be a question about your character, what kind of character you actually have, because you've never been pushed, you've never been challenged, you've never had to develop any kind of muscle at all. And Paul talks about that in Romans chapter 5. And we've been looking through Romans 5, and it's talking about all the great things God does for us and all the blessings God has brought to us and the kindness and generosity he has. And it's really super awesome. And then Paul says in verse 3 and 4, let's just read here, he says, but that's not all. So he's excited. It gets even better. That's not all. Oh, really? We gladly suffer. Whoa, wait a second. I thought you were going to talk about something really good happening. Well, it is, and let's just read it. We gladly suffer because we know that suffering helps us to endure. In other words, it builds muscle inside of us, right? And endurance builds character, which gives us hope. In other words, what Paul is saying is this will shape you. This creates inside you. This develops inside of you who you're meant to be, right? Now, we don't rejoice in the suffering part of it. It's not like, yay, yahoo, I got some suffering happening. But we rejoice in the character that's being built during that time. We rejoice in the steadfastness that God creates inside of us, that we get to know him even better. If you only know your God through the lollipops and ice cream, then you're not going to know your God all that well, right? You need to know your God when you go through hard things. That's when you really get to know who God is. I'm not saying that we rejoice in the suffering. Well, actually, he says we rejoice in the suffering. I'm not saying it's the suffering that we look forward to by any means. That'd just be weird. We look forward to what God creates during that time. You're going to go through suffering in your life anyways. There's going to be hardship. You might as well come out a whole lot better on the other end and look at that and say, I can't wait to see what God's going to do in my life through this trial. And in that way, we can say, okay, there's suffering. Who cares? Let's see what God's going to do.